Frenchie's Art Gallery, located on historic Oak Street beside the Maple Leaf Bar. With over 3,000 square feet of space, it features a large gallery front room and Frenchie's personal art studio. Frenchie's Art Gallery is also connected to the Maple Leaf Courtyard, which is ideal for the New Orleans night scene. Frenchie's Art Gallery, 8314 Oak Street. Yeah, you're right.
Located at 109 Wall Boulevard in Gretna, Uniforms by Logo Express provides school uniforms, medical wear, hospitality wear, safety and industrial wear, and so much more. We offer a number of locations on both sides of the river. 2 in Chantilly, 1 in Woodmere, and our main store located in Gretna. Uniforms by Logo Express. Your brand starts here.
So here's the bottom line. Well, it's funny that you say that. Let me tell you. Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to Primetime Sports with Scott Alexander. I hope everybody had a great Memorial Day weekend, and I hope it was safe for everyone as well. Hey, I am out of town at my son's graduation, but fear not, because we have put together a special show for you tonight, a best of. Hey, listen, this is only 15 weeks we've been into it, but we dug deep. We went to the first half of the season so far, the first half of the shows we've already done, and we've given you a few segments from there, so it's going to be fun. Guests that you know very, very well, and they include, hey, listen, when you're talking about Hall of Famers, we've had 2 of them on the show. One of them was Willie Roaf. We just had him. Well, the other is, well, none other than Ricky Jackson. That's right, Ricky Jackson, the All-Pro linebacker from New Orleans Saints. We've had a lot of other Hall of Fame types, but as far as the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the Saints only have 2. We've had them both. Ricky Jackson segment will be here. Hey, when you think of Hall of Famers, in my opinion, I think of Will Clark. Will Clark is one of the 3 greatest baseball players to ever come out of the Crescent City. His segment will be on. And perhaps the most fun segment we've had in episode 3. That's right, Bobby Hebert was surprised by his son T-Bob. He had no idea T-Bob was going to be on the show. He surprised him during his segment, and then the segment they had together was pure magic. So stay tuned. It's Best of Primetime Sports with Scott Alexander. Let's have some fun.
My life is full of statistics. Thing is, I could have dropped out of school and become one myself, but I didn't, because I had people that believed in me. Here's another statistic. 7,000 students drop out every school day. That's 1 every 26 seconds. It's time that students know that we believe in them.
Inspire a student and share your message of support at boostup.org.
Welcome back, Crescent City. That, of course, is Derek Freeman in the MFG, and we've had a lot of guests in our 8 weeks of doing this. But I have to tell you, this might be the one I'm most excited about having. His name is Will Clark, and he's pretty much in every Hall of Fame that there could possibly be. Hey, the Mississippi Hall of Fame, Sports Hall of Fame, Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame, Mississippi State, the Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame. We could go on and on. The one Hall of Fame that I will lobby till the day I die, when he has to get in the veterans part of it, it's the Baseball Hall of Fame. This guy deserves to be in there. His name's Will Clark, and it's great to have you, my friend.
Well, thank you so much, Scott. Appreciate it.
Well, we're contemporaries. You're a year older. Jesuit, De La Salle, we played against each other, basketball, baseball, many times. But I'm going to go through something real quick because I want to ask you, just right off the top of your head, you got Jesuit Blue Jays back in the day. You graduated in '82. The great years with the Mississippi State Bulldogs. They were LSU before LSU.
Right.
If you're under 35 years old, you probably don't know. That was the powerhouse team. And, of course, the great career with the San Francisco Giants, 8 years there. 5 years after that with the Rangers. You had a little time in Baltimore, and then you had that great finale where you were hitting the cover off the ball with the Cardinals. When you look through that whole time, what sticks out the most? Is there one that just says, hey, man, I love this era a little more than the others?
Well, I mean, you go back, look at your playing days, and, yeah, there are certain teams that, you really enjoy being on more than other teams. But at the same time, you look at your playing career as a whole, and when you are a professional, the probably the one thing that you respect most is when somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, you're a true pro." And that means you just go about your job every day, day in, day out, the same way, and everybody around you knows what to expect.
By the way, 6-time All-Star, for those of you who don't know that. I mean, he could have been 9 or 10 times. The guy hit the cover off the ball. We were just talking about the period with the Giants where there was no better first baseman in baseball. Might not have been a better player. 2-time cover of Sports Illustrated, but it wasn't just that era. I mean, he did it back with the Rangers. I mean, he almost led the league in hitting right there as well. He did it again with the Cardinals, where he's hitting .350 for most of the time at the end there. But when you look back to growing up, because we both are kids of the 70s,
right.
There was no professional baseball team here.
No.
So when you looked, first of all, favorite team you root for me, it was the Reds,
okay.
and favorite players.
All right, well, back in those days, the only teams that we could sort of get on TV were the Houston Astros and then the Kansas City Royals. So, I got to be a big George Brett fan. I loved the way he played. And then every now and then when they came on TV, I'd look at Mike Schmidt. And, even though I was a first baseman and both of them were third basemen, it was sort of the way that they went about their job. They hit the ball for power, for high average, drove in a lot of runs, and were, middle of the order guys on both of their teams. So I respected those guys really well.
All right, we have a shot of you at Jesuit back in the day. Not sure. There you go. I mean, when you look at that, what's your first thoughts?
Oh.
I can't see it on my monitor, but you can see it on yours.
That was about 5'11" and about 155 pounds, and we've come a little ways since there. So,
all right, Mississippi State. You had plenty of choices. You could have gone and played pro baseball, but you wanted to go to college. They were the powerhouse at the time. Talk about how you got there in that whole period.
I was being recruited by, a pretty good group of colleges, UNO and LSU also at the same time. But as you alluded to, Mississippi State was sort of the power in our area at that time, and they had a first base position open. So I signed there, and I went to Mississippi State. And Skip Bertman and I tease each other till this day because he did not get to LSU until my junior year.
Right, right.
We were sort of, established as a national powerhouse by then. So what wound up happening was I wound up, saying, "Hey, look, Skip, if you'd have been at LSU when I was coming out of high school, there'd have been no way I'd have got out of the state of Louisiana."
All right. The Olympics was in '84. It wasn't even a sport as far as I remember until then. I'm not even sure it was considered full. Maybe it was an exhibition.
Yeah, it was a demonstration sport.
Demonstration. It was in Los Angeles.
It was in Los Angeles, and it was the year that the Russians and the Cubans did not play in the Olympics. But we wound up having a pretty good team. I mean, out of the 20 people who were left, I think 17 or 18 of them were first-round draft choices at some time or another. And, we went on a big barnstorming tour, toured the USA. We played like 36 games in 35 days in 32 different cities. And,
wow.
Pretty much tore it up there. And then we wound up going to L.A. and playing in the Olympics.
All right, I should have looked this up before, but off the top of my head, the guys I can remember, Mark McGuire was on that team.
Correct.
I think Barry Larkin. Who were some of the other greats?
You had Corey Schneider at third. I actually played left field. Oda B. McDowell played center field.
Wow.
Chris Gwynn, who was Tony Gwynn's brother, played right.
Uh-huh.
And we had a bevy of pitchers: Bobby Witt, Scott Bankhead, Pat Pasillo. Pretty much everybody played in the major leagues at one time or another.
Speaking of a bevy of pitchers and players in general, we all know about Thunder and Lightning. We all know about the great pitching staff you had. You obviously, Bobby Thigpen had, 55 saves one year. Jeff Brantley, one of the great pitchers for a period in the major leagues. Rafael Palmeiro and yourself. I mean, Mississippi State, just talk about the team and what you did. I mean, I know there was a couple disappointments there. I watched Thunder and Lightning, especially again last night.
Yeah.
The New Orleans loss, UNO for the first time. They got the World Series in '84.
Right.
They had to beat you guys to get there, and then in '85. But talk about the players and the camaraderie, and then also talk about getting back together with these same guys.
Yeah, well, you talk about, going to Mississippi State, and, for the 3 years I was there, we were top 5 in the country the whole 3 years I was there. So, it is legitimately a powerhouse. And in our junior year was the Thunder and Lightning year, and, we had a really good ball club, and we get to the World Series. We're winning going through our brackets, and we're in a driver's seat game against Texas, and winning 4-0 in like the 7th or something like that. And a pitcher who was in total command just took a line drive off his leg and couldn't continue, and Texas came back and beat up on our bullpen. And then the next day we had to come out to losers bracket, and we're facing Miami, and Bobby Thigpen, who you alluded to earlier, being our saves leader, he winds up coming in to hit a grand slam in the top of the 9th inning that put us up 4-3, and then he comes in to get the save in the bottom of the 9th, and with 2 outs and a man on first base in the bottom of the 9th, a guy hits a fastball up over his head, and he hits it out, and that's sort of the end of your college career, end of your World Series dreams. And I'm just sitting on first base, and I'm looking around. I'm like, no way, it just ended like this.
Did it just end? You remember every single pitch, don't you?
Oh yeah. I can go back and give you the blow by blow there.
All right, I have to say, because is the Texas game the one where the line drive went off, and if you had won that game, would it have been over? Or you pretty much
because back in those days. You got in a driver's seat game, and as soon as you got in a driver's seat game, you're automatically in the finale. And if not, you had to come out of the losers bracket. And also a different way about it was winner take all.
Right.
So once you got into the final game, it was no 2 out of 3 or whatever it is now. I mean, it just was one game and go get them. And so that we wound up, finishing 3rd that year.
All right, I'll never forget this because it's a trivia question I've said for years. And I know you know it, you lived it, and it was so nice to see it again last night with your little brother cheering. Hit one out for me.
Yeah.
It was your opening game in the major leagues. You're playing, obviously, for the San Francisco Giants. You're in the Houston Astrodome. And perhaps, certainly in baseball, at that time in that era, Nolan Ryan was the biggest name. I mean, Nolan Ryan had that fastball, 7 no-hitters. And tell me what you did. Your first at bat, not your first game, your first at bat.
I get up there, and you get the butterflies going crazy. You first day in the big leagues, and you're facing Nolan Ryan, living legend out there. And I get in the batter's box, and he actually did me a favor. First pitch, he threw me a curveball, so I could sort of settle down a little bit. And then the next pitch, he missed with a fastball, so the count was 1-1. And then the next ball was out over the plate. And when I caught it, I knew I hit it pretty good,
right.
but not too many people go out of center field in the Astrodome, and this ball rocketed out of there. And I just remember going around second base and just floating in, and I touched home plate and told my family hello, and I gave everybody high fives and all that sort of stuff. And then I was sitting on the bench, and it sort of sunk in, and I looked to my left, and one of our veterans was there, Chili Davis, and I said, he's going to hit me my next at-bat, huh? And Chili looked at me, he says, oh, yeah. And so my next at-bat, I was in the batter's box, and he was in the windup, and I was already on my way to the ground. I said, I'm out of here.
Did he throw one high and tight?
Yeah, he threw one high.
At least he didn't do a Robin Ventura and go attack him, and then
we had a different mode of operation back then. It's just you sort of just sucked it up and took it.
All right, during the pre-show, we were just talking, and it just came up because I remember a conversation. I wasn't even planning on doing this till somebody in the audience kind of brought it up to you. But I remember, it took me about 6 years to really be able to, when I was producing Braves games, to kind of really get in with Greg Maddux. I mean, he's a private guy,
right.
Just one of the great professionals, and he was pitching for the Braves for years, several Cy Youngs, about 5 of them. But I finally was mentioning something about Will Clark and knowing you a little bit, but I said something about, why are you so anal about putting this glove over your face?
Right.
I know a lot of pitchers did it, but he was beyond it. He wouldn't let, whether it's Greg Olson, Javi Lopez, whoever's catching, when they came up, he made sure they were right there, and he was doing this.
Yeah.
And he goes, Will freaking Clark. He goes, because of that guy in 1989, it was NLCS, game 1. I believe he'd already hit a home run, and this was towards the end of the game, and you were in the on-deck circle, and he says he saw me say high inside fastball. And you take it from there. Is this a true story or not?
It is a true story. I had hit a double my first at-bat. My second at-bat, I hit a home run. And he had not thrown me a ball in at all.
And he was with the Cubs at the time.
That is correct. And I was with the Giants,
right.
And everything was away from me. And it was bases loaded, 2 outs in like the 4th or 5th inning. And Don Zimmer comes out to the mound, who was his manager. He's quite a bit shorter than Maddux, and I was in the on-deck circle. And I was looking right at Maddux, and he said, fastball in. And I looked, and I said, oh, my goodness. And my number 4 hole hitter was Kevin Mitchell. I turned around and said, he just said fastball in. He said, what you going to do? I said, I'm going to look fastball in. And it just so happened I got it. First pitch was fastball in, and as we say, when you get it, don't miss it. And luckily I didn't miss it.
Oh, by the way, he also hit the 2-run single in Game 5 to take him to the World Series. I remember this all vividly because 89, well, 88, you led the whole National League in RBIs. You had an incredible year again in 89. I mean, to me, you were the best player in baseball. Your teammate, that 4-hole hitter you just talked about, got the MVP. So he was first in voting. You were second. Talk about that.
Yeah, well, it's just one of those magical years where, Kevin Mitchell, he wound up, having 47 homers and drove in 100 and something, and I was 29 homers and 100 and something, and hit 333 and went down to the last day of the season in 1989 for a batting title with Tony Gwynn. We had a head-up, battle in there, so that was pretty good.
If you're going to a batting title race with Tony Gwynn, you're a darn good hitter.
If Tony and I had a few battles over there, and we could never get him out, so, he became a real good friend. He and I talked at first base quite a bit, and, the last day of the year, I wound up going 1 for 4, and he went 3 for 4, and he beat me by percentage points, and I shook his hand and said, congratulations. He said, yeah, he says, I got the batting title. He said, but I want to go to the playoffs like you're doing right now. So, there's a give and take. There's personal achievements that you sort of pat yourself on the back for, but then in the long run, you look at the team accomplishments, and the team accomplishments going to the playoffs and going to the World Series is more important.
There's certain moments of, obviously, if you're watching a game that you really care about, you know where you are. But I never forget the earthquake moment. And I had moved to D.C. I'm working on Capitol Hill, but at night I was bartending at this place. And I just remember I couldn't wait. I got there early for my shift because, the game was about to start. And all of a sudden, the earthquake, the TVs are going out everywhere. And I'm sure you've seen all the highlights of that. But you were there. Yeah. And take us through that whole thing, because it's a tragedy. Yeah. There's nothing funny about this whole situation. You don't know what's going on at the time.
It's about 7 minutes before, introductions. And so we're out on the field running some sprints. And I had just got through running a sprint out to center field. So I'm standing in center field. I'm walking back towards the right field line. And it sounded like those F-15s flying over, where it's a big roar. And I looked up, and I just happened to look up, and I was looking at one of the light standards, and it was swaying back and forth. And I was like, oh, this is not good. And then about that time, you could actually see the wave coming through the stadium. And, for people in California, that's sort of a normal occurrence for them. But, I was, needless to say, a little on the scared side, and having family in the stands, wanted to make sure they were okay. So by the time I got back to the dugout and was talking to some of the police that were around the dugout, they were talking about how the Marina District was on fire. The Bay Bridge had collapsed. They had several other things.
Yeah, when did you find all that out? Because that was this became giant.
Yeah, it literally, within 5 minutes you found all that stuff out, because the police radios were right there, and you could, once I made sure my family was okay, then one of the police captains came down and he said, there's no way we're going to be able to play this ball game. Plus, on top of that, Candlestick Park at that time had structural damage out in center field. So, the World Series, you play all year long to go to the World Series. You maybe get, 1 day off every month or so. And, it gets put on hold. We wound up sitting for 10 days before the World Series is resumed. So, even though it's still the World Series, it really lacked its luster.
Where were they played?
They were played in the same stadiums.
Okay.
Because in those 10 days, they wound up fixing Candlestick Park.
All right, let me take you back to college real quick, because you won the Golden Spikes. Got a great picture of you. Great stash back in the day, by the way. Great stash. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm jealous of that. That's
Thanks.
lush and full.
Yeah, that was when I had hair.
You got a lot of them right there. You look like Dick Smothers, actually, or Tom's mother, too.
Thanks.
Talk about the winning that. That's the college baseball's best player.
You know what? That's a culmination of a lot of hard work in college and being on a great team. I actually, believe it or not, I had better stats as a sophomore, but then as a junior, up until literally the last week of the season, I was leading college baseball in the Triple Crown. And, well, take that back, not the Triple Crown, but batting average. I was hitting over 500, for the whole season. And so, it wound up being, a great award, like we said before, personally, but looking back on it, I'd rather that line drive miss our pitcher and us winning the World Series.
I mean, you think about that moment a lot, don't you? I mean, you have to.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Because the one thing that you want to do is, as a ball player, is you want to win the last game.
Right.
You want to be the only guy standing. And I've been fortunate. Now that I'm with the Giants for in the front office, I've been fortunate enough to be around the Giants for 3 of their World Series wins and have that ring sitting on your finger. But also at the same time, I was knocking on the door of it at the collegiate level, and I really, really wanted that.
But you are part of these last 3. It's an even-known year, like we said in the open. That's when the Giants do their thing, 10, 12, and 14. Let me ask you back, because I have to take you back real quick. There's that little,
there you go.
You see all the championships. How
logos.
great is that to be a part of?
That's awesome.
Hey, but take you back to college one more last time. I'd be remiss not to ask you about Thunder and Lightning,
Yep.
because y'all were Thunder and Lightning. Hey, you
Yep.
grew up in New Orleans. We had Thunder and Lightning with Chuck Muncie and Tony Galbraith, correct?
That
With
is
the
correct.
Saints.
That is correct.
But these 2 guys, Will Clark, Rafael Palmeiro, were the sweetest swings in baseball, period, and they happen to be on the same team. I'll still go to my grave saying that's the best 1-2 punch in baseball history in college, for sure.
Talk
about your relationship.
Rafi and I were teammates. Needless to say, there was a Thunder and Lightning show that was on TV, a 30-30. And
that's it right there.
Yeah, it outlined things a little bit more. But, as far as ball players on the field, you really, really respected him and what he could do with a baseball. And, our sophomore years, I hit 28 homers and drove in 93, and he hit 29 homers.
In college, that's unbelievable.
Oh,
by the
he
way.
hit 29 homers and drove in 94, and that's a 3 and a 4 hole guy, right in the middle, and it's only a 60-game season, so you put those stats up there.
And that's pre-gorilla ball too.
Oh yeah,
I mean that's not like 90s, late 90s.
No, you had to crunch a ball.
Like when Brandon Larson was hitting 40. Or,
yeah, no. This is legitimate baseball. I mean, where you had to man up and go do it. And one thing that we could do in a heartbeat was, in Mississippi State, we could throw up a crooked number on the scoreboard in a heartbeat, and that led to a lot of our wins. We did have really good pitching. We had Jeff Brantley and Gene Morgan. One of them had 19 wins. The other one had 18 wins. But also at the same time, if we needed to, we could pound the ball. We could throw up a 12 or 15 spot pretty easy.
You play with another great player. You played with several great players. Don't underestimate that. But one of them, Barry Bonds, came and played with you for a year. I remember there he is, that famous picture of him messing with your hair. Did he kind of get under your skin a little bit?
You know what? Barry and I got along good. I mean, everybody, he has a bad rap in the media, and it's rightfully so. I mean, he's very outspoken and criticized people quite a bit. But as far as me and him, ball players, I had played against him in college. I played against him in
Arizona State, right?
Yeah, and when he was with Pittsburgh, and then I was with San Francisco, and then he came over in '93 to the Giants. His first year was also my last year, and he was MVP that year. Hit 47 homers, drove in 100 and whatever, and he hit 5th. So I hit 3rd, Matt Williams hit 4th, and then Barry hit 5th, and that was a pretty good middle of the order to get through. Yeah, and so it led to 103 wins. You had talked about the Braves before. Braves actually had 104 wins. That was before the wild card.
The year before.
And before divisions opened up. There was no Central Division. It was only East and West. And so you had to win your division in order to move on to the playoffs.
Yeah, it wasn't 4 divisions.
Exactly. So we had 103 wins, and we wound up going home because Atlanta had 104, and they were in the same division.
That's incredible that 103-win team can't go.
That's correct. And, then, like I said, Barry's the MVP. Myself and Matt Williams had really good years that year. And then we had 2 pitchers that were 20-game winners. How many 20-game winners 2 times do you have on a staff? And so it was pretty neat. Your
relationship with Mark McGwire.
Mark and I, till this day, are good friends. I mean, we were friends on the Olympic team, and then we played, as you can see right here, we played 8 years against each other. When he was with Oakland and I was with San Francisco, we played in the World Series against one another. We played in spring training against one another. And then when I went to St. Louis, I actually took over first base duties until he got healthy. And so Mark and I, till this day,
you are on the Sports Illustrated
on the cover
together.
of Sports Illustrated, and we were like the Bay Area sluggers, and so he's a good person. I really like Mark a lot.
Yeah.
He's been with quite a few teams now. He was with the St. Louis doing some coaching. He went with Los Angeles doing coaching. Now I think he's with San Diego. I think now.
Chipper Jones once said, and another guy took about 8 years to really get his confidence, but when the whole steroid thing was going on, he just was like, he named a couple other guys, including himself, that he says, I know these guys don't cheat the game. Ken Griffey Jr., myself, and Will Clark. He mentioned you specifically. Do you feel proud that you're one of the guys that did it the right way?
I do. My dad was a hard worker, and he always said, use your common sense and outwork the other guy. And that's what I tried to do. I'm local Jesuit educated, went to Mississippi State. I studied engineering up there while I was playing ball. And so I tried to use my smarts and tried to outwork people. And, people that take the shortcut and aren't afraid to, go in the bathroom and stick themselves or whatever, you're just cheating yourself. And on top of that, down the road, you're looking at health concerns. I mean, look at like a guy like Jose Canseco. He's having all kinds of health problems now, and I'm able to walk around and still be fairly healthy after a fairly long career.
And Kim Caminiti, I mean, a sweet person.
Yeah.
But I saw how it changed him, and he ended up.
I mean, he's another member of the Olympic team too.
Right.
Ken was one of my teammates, and it's sad to see how he went down and how quick he went down. But, one of the big parts about being a baseball player is you have to be able to look yourself in the mirror. If you went 0 for 4, say, I didn't do it that day. Or if you went 3 for 4, say, I had a good day, but then again, I could have improved here and there. And at the end of the day, like we talked about earlier, by being a true professional, I can look at myself in the mirror and say, I went about it every day, I did it the right way, and I hope everybody enjoyed it.
You're a true Gramer. Listen, when I grew up, it was Pete Rose. And when I got to college and beyond, it was Will Clark, and it's an honor for me to have you on. We were on basketball and baseball fields and courts at one time, but you made us all proud. There's Rusty Staub, there's Mel Ott from way back when, and there's Will Clark, the 3 greatest baseball players to ever come out of the city of New Orleans, and one of them is sitting right here. So thank you. Hey, by the way, I know you know about Legacy Kitchen.
Yep.
Your friend Paul McGoey owns it, so there's a nice little gift certificate.
Thank you.
And we have a little tradition, Will. As you see, the Cajun Cannon's got the big signature, Bobby Hebert. We got Ricky Jackson, Deuce, and a bunch of other great players and coaches and stuff and media members. So if you don't mind, give us a signature right there.
Got it. And I'm just letting you know that these things right here, all right,
Yeah.
they don't go good end over end.
So when you start throwing the ball, you don't want to use the ones that are the leather ones that sign on the side.
Exactly.
Okay, right. Words of advice from Will to throw, by the way. It's great to have him on. By the way, Rusty Staub will be on coming up in the next couple months. I just talked to him. He lives up in New York, so he'd come back and forth. Another great Jesuit player. I guess they all went there. Hey, but coming up, we're going to have one of my favorite guys in the city of New Orleans, period, as a person, player, and beyond. I used to call the high school football games of the week with him. His name's Marlon Favorite. He's a national champion at LSU. And he also, he did something in the NFL as well. He was New Orleans Saint for a little period. He's coming up next on Primetime Sports.
I'm Rick Edelman. Join me every week for The Truth About Money. I answer real questions for real people just like you. Questions about investments, taxes, buying houses, saving for college, planning for retirement, handling wills and trusts. I'll give you the solid, common sense advice you need to reach your financial goals. That's The Truth About Money with Rick Edelman, right here on this station.
Fridays at 11 p.m. on WLAE.
I don't want to say we're saving the best for last, but we're saving our Hall of Famer in the NFL for last. And he's been in so many Hall of Fames, he can't even remember all of them. I know Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame, of course, his college team, the college football, NFL Hall of Fame, the very first player from the New Orleans Saints, and only one has been since, and his name's Willie Rope. But my guest, Ricky Jackson, number 57.
My pleasure.
Everybody knows you well. Ricky, I'm going to go off the grid on this first question. You probably haven't been asked it a whole lot, but I was just curious, because I've always spelled your name a couple different ways. My son in high school changed his Zach from Z-A-C-K to Z-A-C-H. You do the same thing with Ricky.
Yeah, I changed mine too.
I mean, tell me how that all happened, man.
I just like the EY, you know what I mean? You hear the key better, you know, so I just changed it to EY.
So you hear the key better,
Right.
K-E-Y? Is that why all the kids have a Ricky, former Ricky?
All right, so I'll name them all of them after me.
Rakia, give me some other names.
Rakeem, Rakivas, you know, just put them out to me.
Makes it easy.
All right.
Hey, let's talk real quick about one of the things. Saints fans will remember this if you're hardcore back from the 80s. Obviously, Ricky was in that great 81 draft. Before I get to that draft, there's something that you always used to do, and I had to be reminded of it. Somebody's like, do you remember the towels? The towels was a big thing. When he had the towel that would hang down, you know, tucked in his jersey, and we have a picture of one here. It says the Slammer, okay? Now, talk about that real quick, but also I have a towel I really want you to explain, because you had a towel that had a frowny face on it, right? Like, you know, and then you had the word Y-O-U, you. Right. So talk about that, and was that planned for any particular player, or is that just whoever was in front of you?
Well, you know, we had one coach used to cry all the time, so when I put the face on that was for him, and I used to always have one for Joe Montana. You can see the ones when we get ready to play the 49ers, I would put Joe on the towel and stuff, so it was just different thing to motivate you for the game.
Did they ever comment like a Montana? Obviously, he was the albatross for the Saints for a long time. The Saints, as good as they got, couldn't seem to get by Montana. But he always said, you know, he and Steve Young, they said y'all always gave him the best games. But, I mean, did he ever comment or anybody like that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, every time I always played Joe, you know, he always would, you know, try to take the towel from me at the end or something, you know. So, you know, that's what I always did. I just put the quarterback on the towel a lot of the time. Whoever I was focused on that game, I would put on the towel.
I want to talk about that draft in 81. The Saints obviously were 1-15, not very good, but there's a lot of linebackers that were taken ahead of you. I mean, look at this list, and I'm going to go over this real quick. Lawrence Taylor, some say the greatest of all time, regardless of position. He speaks for himself. E.J. Jr. from Alabama was big in college, good pro. Hugh Green, your teammate. And I'm going to get into that in a second. Obviously, he was a guy that they were considering for Heisman Trophy. He was even on the cover of Sports Illustrated. But here's the Rams' two picks, Mel Owens and Jim Collins. I don't know a whole lot about them, and I study football. If the Rams had picked you instead of those two, they might have stayed in Los Angeles originally.
Yeah, but I was glad, you know, the Saints took me because I didn't really want to be out there for, you know what I mean? My whole thing, I was from Florida. Right. So New Orleans was a lot closer for me and better for me to get home and stuff. I really was never a West Coast guy. I went to the University of Pittsburgh, you know, stayed on the East Coast, but West Coast was never my cup of tea.
Well, did that give you incentive? I mean, listen, you know, you weren't even the first guy picked on from your team. No offense. I mean, Hugh Green was the guy that was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. They were talking about him possibly being the first defensive Heisman Trophy winner. Didn't work out, but he got picked with the 7th pick. You had, obviously, Lawrence Taylor out of North Carolina getting picked, and then you start falling back. A lot of linebackers picked early, and then they had a little rush towards around where you were. What were you thinking that whole draft, and how much motivation that give you?
Well, I didn't worry about that because we had Mark May taken in the first round, Randall McMillan taken in the 10th pick. Mark May was taken about the 7th pick. Hugh Green was like the 8th pick. So University of Pittsburgh had a lot of guys to go in the first round that year, but I knew I was going to get picked in the, you know, top 2 rounds. It was always, you know, talking about late first or early second. So, you know, it didn't make no difference who I was going to go to. I know I was going to be a star, so that's what counts.
And this is why I don't script questions, because you brought all those great players from Pittsburgh, and you guys were a dynasty back then, even before you was Tony Dorsett. But there was a quarterback that was a couple years behind you. Did you have any idea that Dan Marino, and listen, everybody wants to talk about greatest quarterbacks of all time. They talk about, you know, you have to win a title or two. He didn't win one, but I'm going to tell you, if I need a guy to sling a ball, there's none better than Dan Marino, your college teammate.
And I used to go to his house and eat all the time. You know what I mean? That was mine. You know, he stayed right down the street from the campus, so we was best friends, and I always went down there and eat. And Mom and Dad always had food for us when we got there, so it was like home for me.
Like Italian food, I'm sure, Marino, right, baby?
Italian food, so I was home for me. My junior, senior, I stayed there eating all the time. All
right, I want to get back to the draft, okay? Because a lot of people talk about, you know, the younger set that doesn't remember back to 1981. The Saints have had not a lot of success lately. Last year was a pretty good draft, and hopefully it'll be great. 2006 is the one everybody around here wants to talk about. You know, look at the list. Reggie Bush, perhaps one of the greatest decoy running backs of all time. I mean, he had moves I've never seen. Roman Harper, still starting in the NFL. Jari Evans, obviously, is going to find a greener pasture, but 10 years, 6-time Pro Bowler. Ninkovich started on a Super Bowl champion the year before last, and he's still starting for the Patriots. Streif and Colston's careers were amazing. Colston obviously set a bunch of records, but your draft. Now, it helped a little bit that you got the first pick because the Saints were in 78 and 79, were 7-9 and 8-8, looking like they were going to be on a meteoric rise with Archie Manning doing well. then the 1-15 season. So they had the first pick that year. They got a guy named George Rogers, who blew up immediately out of South Carolina, the Heisman Trophy winner. But back to that list, though, because I want people to see this. Russell Gary from Nebraska was a big-time defensive back. Obviously, Ricky Jackson speaks for himself, Hall of Famer. Frank Warren, longtime defensive tackle and starter on the team. Hobie Brenner, seemed like he started for 2 decades. Louis Oubre out of Oklahoma, and even a couple more on that list.
All right, we had Hogan Gajan right there from Baton Rouge from LSU. He was a stud. I mean, you know,
Jim Wilkes.
Yeah, had Jim Wilkes. I mean,
long-time starter.
Right, Frank Wadley. So we had a lot of good guys, and then Dave Wilson came in the supplementary draft that year, #1 quarterback, you know, from Illinois that year. So we had a lot of great players. But, you know, looking at that class with, you know, other class with 206 class, they got the chance to get to a Super Bowl, and, you know, that was great for them, you know, knowing that, you know, all those guys, they was here long enough to get on that Super Bowl team. So that was good for that class, too.
Hey, I got to talk about Dome Patrol, obviously the greatest, and some say, in fact, the NFL Network has put this out, greatest 4-man linebacker crew of all time. Only time that you have 4 guys from the same team at the same position start together in a Pro Bowl. I mean, you guys could win games on your own. You say, listen, just hold the defense, hold the other team to 12 points or less. Bobby Abreu will get you a couple touchdowns. We'll win the game. Talk about that team and those teammates. And I'm going to bring up this greatest linebacker graphic because, to me, and this is only my opinion, I think those 4 are still the greatest linebackers in Saints history.
Yeah, I mean, you know, not on the Saints history, I mean in the NFL history. I mean, anytime you get 4 guys in the same position go to the Pro Bowl, I mean, at one time, that was amazing for all us to be out there on the field at the same time. And, you know, you get a lot of publicity from outside and all that, but a lot of those guys, they deserve to get publicity right here in New Orleans. And I'm still waiting on that for some of those guys to get recognized. You know, for me, I'm in the Hall of Fame. It don't make a difference. But for Sam, Vaughn, and Pat, those guys, they deserve a lot better than what they've been getting. So I'm just waiting on the accolades to come to them, too.
I mean, should they be Hall of Famers?
Well, I mean, you know, Hall of Famer is hard to say, but I know that, you know, for here locally, you know what I mean, they should be pushed a little more, you know what I mean. You can't, the Hall of Fame is something that you don't have no control over, but locally, you know, them guys need to be recognized a little more.
One of the guys at the bottom of that list, Stephon Anthony, it kind of, I know he's not outside linebacker like you, he's playing inside, but he's side to side. I have a question mark on him, just like I had a question mark about Delvin Breaux because it's incomplete. You can't put him in there yet. But kind of like you, Hugh Green got all the accolades, right? Well, he was playing with a guy, I believe it was, Beasley. Vic Beasley was the other guy who was the 8th pick with the Falcons. He was later. Did that give you incentive with Hugh Green being up there? And, like, do you think it might be working for Anthony? Because he had a great rookie year.
No, I didn't ever worry about that because those guys was college players and stuff, but I know the NFL is a whole different ball game, and I feel like my style was more NFL. I was going to be great in the NFL, and I'm sure he feel the same way. And just looking at, for me to have 125 tackles my rookie year and for him to break that, I mean, I let you know right there that, you know, he's a stud and he's going to be a great ball player. And he's playing in the middle. You know, I just hope that they get some big enough guys in the front to protect him because he can really play football. I look for him to be, as you get older and get smarter, he'll be like the guy from North Carolina, Luke Lee, you know what I mean? He'll be a lot like that.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, and he got the speed and you can see he got the toughness. So I like him.
Good call on that. Hey, I got to bring up the Hall of Fame. I mean, listen, I'm not going to lie. I cried like a baby when you were inducted. The day you got elected, the Saints won the Super Bowl the next day. I kind of believe in these karma things. Look at this picture right there. Give me the memory it brings back. Of course, that's Tom Benson. And is it Steve Perry, the head of the Hall of Fame over there? And then, of course, there's your bust.
Well, for the fans, you know what I mean, I really enjoyed the fans of New Orleans. They really took me in 1981 as one of their guys, you know, and it just always, anything that you did, you know what I mean, you shared it with them and they really cared about me, and that was just great to have them, you know, celebrate with me.
Just the love that the fans have. I'm going to close on this because you're the only guy they could have rooted for when San Francisco was beating our brains in, or at least sometimes it was always at the end of the game. But you go in the, you know, I think it was your first year, you get there, you get the Super Bowl championship. That moment was great, and we all became 49er fans.
All right, I mean, it's just like Evan, you know what I mean? He got to go play somewhere. I mean, once the team don't want you no more, I mean, you know, he feel like he got a couple more years left, so he got to go play somewhere. So wherever he go, the Saints not going to hate that team because he went there, because they know that he lost it here and he wanted to be here, but, you know, it was just his time up.
And for you youngsters under 25, the 49ers were in the Saints division with the Los Angeles Rams and Atlanta Falcons back in the day. And the 49ers just seemed to be the team they couldn't get by. Ricky Jackson, one of my favorites. This is an honor for me. I appreciate you coming on.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Hey, we're going to go back. Derek Freeman in the MFG. Coming right back.
The mark of Legacy Kitchen is simple. We offer numerous dishes like chicken enchilada soup, prime filet and loaded baked potato, baby back ribs, and so much more. At Legacy Kitchen, we serve American fare, crafted cocktails, and we offer a great selection of wines by the glass. Metairie at Vetz and Martin Berman, and in the Warehouse District at Chapatulas and Girard.
Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934. It is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans.
North Shore Basketball Training Center is located at 70239 Highway 59 in Abita Springs. Here we offer developmental programs for all ages, focusing on structure, hard work, effort, and teamwork. North Shore Basketball Training Center also has year-round basketball teams, leagues, camps, training, speed and agility conditioning, and other programs to help enrich our students. North Shore Basketball Training Center, now with a new training facility at 3747 West Esplanade Avenue in Metairie.
What does August 19th, I'm not sure I should say the year, but I will, 1960 mean to you?
Oh, that was my birthday.
That's yours?
Yeah.
No, Morton Anderson's.
Morton
you two
Anderson,
were born on the very same day.
yes.
You have to have had a blowout or two.
And then also Bill Clinton.
On the same day?
August 9th. No, not the same day, but August 19th.
But the same day as 1960, you two were born.
Martin Anderson and I, that's why we're so close. And we'd be like, we were also, in the locker room. Our lockers were always next to each other, because I'm number 3, he's number 7. With the Saints and the Falcons, and we figured it out. His mom figured out he was like 6 hours older than I am with the time change and everything. So Martin Anderson and I, the Great Dane.
He's 6 hours older than you?
Older than me.
Why does he look so young in the pictures? I saw him at training camp. The guy looks like he's 40.
Yeah, but he's fatter. I'm fat, but he's even fatter. I mean, it's like we both we looked at each other. God, we feel like fat bastard or something.
I got one more date. What does February 9th? Of 1983 mean to you? 1989 mean to you?
Say it again now.
February 9th, 1989. Do you remember that date at all?
No, I don't.
You don't remember it all? Hey, nothing big happened to you?
No.
Nothing big happened to you? Put your hand down. You don't remember when this guy was born?
Tournament is?
That's T-Bob Abear, Bobby's son right there.
No, T-Bob was born. What's up?
Don't you even remember my own birthday when I'm right behind you?
I'm thinking it's some sports tricks. Like, what happened?
Hey, we're coming right back with T-Bob Abear and his dad, Bobby, right here on Primetime Sports.
Mondays at 6 p.m. on WLAE.
Welcome back, Crescent City. It's already been a fun show. Bobby Abear was so much fun. I'm keeping him here, and I'm bringing his son together. T-Bob, along with Bobby, father, son.
Yes.
And by the way, were you surprised, Bobby?
Totally. I don't get surprised. Usually I can figure out what's going to come ahead.
Like,
but I was shocked. I thought it was something like sports related, but like, hello, February 9th, T-Bob born 1989.
I was told we were going to play the X-Wing miniatures game.
That's
so
it.
I'm also a bit confused.
So you're
I don't see
surprised
any
as well.
I don't see any X-Wing
There's
anywhere.
no Warhammer out here.
Yeah, what's
I mean,
going
what are
on?
we doing here? By the way, a renowned gamer.
Yeah.
T-Bob is right there. And by the way, I have to say something because I did this to my kids, but they weren't born yet. I brought myself and my ex-wife to Atlanta,
Yep.
and we're Louisiana folks, and they were raised in Georgia, having to fight off all the Georgia folks, the Falcons fans, and they were hardcore LSU and Saints fans. What was it like for you growing up in Georgia as an LSU fan?
So, okay, so absolutely as an LSU, I was a massive LSU fan, right? My grandpa brainwashed, it's my dad's dad.
58 championship, he was hanging around LSU, right?
Exactly, right. He went there in the 50s. He's been, actually, I like this little fact, he's been at every LSU national championship. So there's not many people out there that can say that. So I always dealt with the Georgia fans, and there were good years. Like 03, where you beat them twice, once in Death Valley and in the SEC Championship. And then there were bad years, which I think the next year, actually, they lost twice to Georgia in the regular season and in the SEC Championship. Now, the Saints-Falcons dynamic,
That's the funny part.
It's a bit more interesting.
It's a bit muddled.
Yes, because, and I don't know, this is not something that he would maybe want to admit nowadays, being the father of the Houdat Nation, but I was not raised to like the Saints. I was
breaking news.
I was raised that the Saints had maybe
had a bitter battle with Jim Finks.
Yes, exactly.
A contract battle, which is well known. He sat out a year.
Jim Finks was a name in my childhood. He kind of represents a villain. Like I didn't know who he was. I didn't know anything about him except that we did not like him.
He was this person out there you had no idea, but you know you're supposed to hate him.
Yes.
Well, and you have to think about it. I'm going to expose T-Bob and his little brother to be in an NFL locker room.
Yeah.
So if you're in the Falcons locker room and you're aware of Falcons players, why wouldn't you?
Oh, well, that's the other thing, too.
As a little boy.
I have no memories of
you're like
Saints
4 or
games.
5, 6 years old.
Too
7.
young.
Yeah.
Like, I have some memories of Falcons games.
I just thought about this. I met you, by the way, giving you guys tickets to
the Hawks game
Hawks
forever
game.
ago.
Big basketball fan.
I was
your dad
diehard
is.
Hawks fan.
You were too, and I covered him for years. And your brother Bo loved Steve Nash. I know that.
Yes.
And I got y'all tickets. Y'all already had season tickets. I just upgraded you a few times to the
exactly.
court.
It was, I had a lot of fun at those games, man, absolutely. And some of my best memories going to those Hawks games I mean, we would go nearly every game. And I was telling him about this yesterday. They made the playoffs every year, right? They never really won anything. They had a great team. Mookie Blaylock, Steve Smith, Mutombo was in there.
Christian Laettner.
Laettner showed up for a time. Stacey Augmon, the plastic man. So they had these teams.
My man knows it.
And
I
they
love
make the playoffs every year, but I was spoiled where I was like, that's not good enough. Now, with what we're experiencing here in New Orleans, I would kill for that kind of success if the Pelicans could
They had a
recreate
guy
it.
named Michael Jordan that happened to be in their own conference.
Yeah,
it was
exactly,
either him or
right,
Patrick
yeah,
Ewing, and you had to
yeah,
get by them.
yeah.
Hey, I've got to bring this up because I don't want to run out of time. We talked about Bobby's winning percentage when he was in the USFL, the Saints, and then that porous one with the Falcons. But your winning percentage as an LSU Tiger, by the way, T-Bob started 26 games. He played in 42 in his career. 2007, they win a national championship. You come in, and you're one of the rare players that has an improvement every year. In fact, that last year, arguably the greatest regular season in NCAA football history. They beat non-ranked teams, most of them in the top 10. They beat the eventual national champion who beat them. And then they beat the Orange Bowl champion,
And
the Rose Bowl champion.
yeah,
They beat everybody that year, but they couldn't get across the 50. And unfortunately, that's the greatest season that no one wants to talk about any of the great games except for the one you didn't win.
It's kind of like, I've always likened it to kind of spending your entire life trying to climb this mountain or climb this hill, reach the summit, and then right when you're on the precipice, right? You're like about to climb up the final rung of the ladder, and
You need to be
somebody
an actor,
just,
my man.
boom, somebody
You got
just
the-
kicks you down, man.
You
So.
got the drama.
Look, it sucks now that I've gotten a little distance from it. I really hold almost fully positive memories about the year and really my whole time at LSU. Like you said, starting with those guys in 07, grinding our way up every year. really struggling in 08 and then improving from then on out. And a couple things, one of the most proud accomplishments that I have for my time there is that my last 2 years, we went undefeated at home. So if you were a student at LSU at the time, you did not have to watch us lose in Tiger Stadium, which we took a lot of pride in.
Well, and you look at that season. I mean, how can it be, because, it's all about hype a lot of times, how can it be the game of the century when they won 9-6?
Yeah, well, it was an epic battle, though, Bobby.
But I mean,
it was epic.
But it's like, now I think it's overhyped everything now. Oh, this is the game of the century, 9-6, and then you eventually still have to play a national championship. Yeah,
which
we got lucky to win the first time.
You guys wanted to play them again, but then in retrospect, did you feel it's not really fair to have to do it again?
Like, if we're being honest with ourselves, I don't think anybody wanted to play them again.
But y'all kept saying publicly, bring them on.
Yes, well, you have to, right? I mean, you can't be like, no, we don't really
want any part of them.
They were by far the best team that we played, and the numbers bear it out. Go look at the amount of NFL players in that first LSU Alabama
it's the most
game.
of all time.
Yeah, it's absurd. It's like
the most of
40-something.
any game ever played in college.
Wow.
The most pros. It beat Miami, Florida State from a few years earlier. Still to this day. Second teamers are in there. By the way, that season started off Oregon in Dallas,
awesome
I believe, and then you had 11 pancakes. By the way, this guy had 198 knockdown blocks. I counted every play, by the way. I'm a research nut. 1,834 plays he was in at LSU. What's the play you remember the most?
Oh, the play I remember the most. I think it goes back to maybe my favorite game of all time, and there's a couple. A lot of people point to the Tennessee game, it was absolutely absurd.
I actually produced that for CBS. That's the last game I've ever done.
So that was crazy because I've never had an experience where it's like it literally comes down to the last play. There were 0 seconds left on the clock. It's 1 yard. Try to get in the end zone, but the one that I remember more than anything.
Let me tell people that's the 13 men on the field.
Yes.
You hike the ball. And
very lucky.
If you don't hike it, they don't win.
That's true. Right. I had no clue there were 13 people on the field. I knew we had to get some sort of playoff.
To me, and I think you've told me this, he realized he had to snap the ball because of what happened at Ole Miss the year before.
Yeah, when I didn't snap the ball, we lost.
It was like, okay, you kind of programmed to do what the quarterback says, whatever, and it's like, whoa. Shoot, we're not doing anything. I can't let this happen again.
There were mistakes that went down at the end of the game. If you're going to call a run play without a timeout, you need to have a follow-up. We did it. But my favorite play ever has got to be junior year at Florida. We hadn't won in the Swamp in like a decade.
Okay.
And last second, once again, 3rd and goal, and fade touchdown to Terrence Tolliver. One foot in with the fingertips with like 3 seconds left.
Right.
The year before, the worst game I ever played in college, the worst grade I ever got was Florida my sophomore year against Spikes and all them. And they had stomped on the eye of the Tiger in Tiger Stadium. And so I'll never forget immediately after we knew that Terrence scored and we won the game, running out to that F and just jumping on it again. Because even 2 years ago, I had gotten knocked out in the Florida game, to the point where the game where we got decimated by Tebow and company. And I mean, I was so knocked out that when I came to, I was on a knee at the 50 with the Florida team. So it was like I had a lot of bad blood that was excised that 2010 game in the Swamp.
I have to bring this up. Championship game. Your son doesn't play. Jarrett Lee doesn't play. Russell Shepard doesn't play. He was like the main recruit that, helped get other recruits there. Not to bring up a sore subject. You went off on Les, and I want to know the genesis of that and how you reacted. This is your dad, but he said all the right things. He didn't ask anything that should have been asked, but I want to know how you reacted, and just kind of in a nutshell. I don't have a lot of time.
Well, T-Bob can't control me. He knows that. He goes like, what are you talking about? That's my dad. He's crazy kind of thing.
It's one of those things where probably the only really annoying side effect of it, because it was a legitimate question, is just that now nobody believes me about any of the rumors about, mutinies and revolts.
The conspiracy theories?
Yes, and Jordan Jefferson, and I punched him in the face and told Coach Miles, I'm not playing unless you play Jarrett. But, come on, man.
I'm not going to play.
So none of that's true. I'm frustrated. I think some bad decisions were made, but it's not all one-sided, man. We got outcoached and outplayed, and 99% of my time at LSU was all positive memories, and I'm very happy.
I got to ask you a question, because obviously the apple does fall far from the tree in one sense. Why do you not cheer in the press box like your dad?
Well, okay, so he, and you said it earlier in the show, he says he's not a journalist. I don't think of myself as a journalist either, but
there he is.
I'm not, that was hilarious. I'm not necessarily, I don't have the skins on the wall, right? Like, I'm not, his resume speaks for himself when he's dealing with these talking about sports in a professional manner. Whereas I think I have to sell people a little more that I'm trying to approach this from a more of a journalistic mindset.
From more mature aspect.
He's learned. Hey, before I let it
I
go,
would say this, T-Bob's always more mature than me, and so that's just.
I got it, but he does play video games.
I mean, come on, it's like I was in the LSU press box.
I have to put this graphic up. Have you ever Googled yourself? Because this is kind of funny. You put the T up, and then you get the basic stuff like Target, Toys R Us, and the Oscars. And then you put the dash. You get T-Mobile and then T-Rex the dinosaur.
That makes sense.
Then you put the B after that. You get T-Bone Steak and the rapper. And then T-Bois Blues Fest and La Rose, and obviously the OG. But you put T-Bob, there's only one thing.
Yes.
Bobby, you're not getting Bobby Hebert. You get T-Bob Hebert.
That's true. So I've never met anyone with the name T-Bob until the other day on Twitter. This is really weird. I came across a girl who works in Houston in sports radio, and she goes by T-Bob, and she was at LSU at the same time that I was, and now we're both in radio. So we kind of were chatting back and forth, saying this is probably the first time there's
I can
ever
only
been
imagine
two
what a girl
T-Bobs.
named T-Bob looks like.
Actually,
she's a looker?
She's pretty hot.
All
man.
right.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And he is, man. He has a beautiful wife, by the way.
Yes.
This is a tradition that we have started with Ricky Jackson and Deuce McAllister.
Awesome.
And I want you guys to sign on that fat part up there.
Awesome. And
Bobby
you know,
Hebert.
Scott, looking at the LSU press box, that's why I remember LSU Alabama game. Okay, why am I going to cheer for Alabama? I mean, come on, it's LSU Alabama. That's why I can't be in the
Bobby
press
and I were
box.
sitting next to each other at the Pelicans Golden State. The Pels had a 20-point lead going to the fourth, and he said, "Did they have any chance of losing this?" I said, "Yes, they did."
And
they did. This was last year. Bobby was cheering the whole time.
I was there. I didn't have a voice for days just from yelling, "Rebound."
Bobby's signature will not be missed because it is the biggest I've seen. I do appreciate it.
It's like Cajun Cannon, do that. He used to do Saints/Falcons, very meticulous.
We have to do this again sometime without the
Absolutely,
surprise. Man. I want to thank, obviously, these two guys, Bobby Hebert.
Thanks, Scott.
T-Bob Hebert.
Scott, always a pleasure, man. Absolutely.
Fletcher Mackel, and then Tennessee coach, obviously, Donnie Tyndall. My man in the band right there, Charlie Wooten with the New Orleans Suspects. Our regular guy, Devin Taylor. The guys that missed from, Derek Freeman and the MFG. I want to thank Will Hill, my producer. The fill-in guys in the band, Ron Yeager and Jim Dotson, and everybody that works so hard on this show. Y'all have a great night, and we'll see you again next week on Primetime Sports.